Hello and welcome to the Political AttaSchay. I'm ActionSA. Welcome to this brand new platform where I hope to share with you some political analysis, discussions around current affairs, and some insights into procedures and legislation through which governments function. Firstly, let me introduce myself properly. I'm ActionSA. I'm a ward councillor in Ward 72 in Johannesburg, representing the incredible community there. Today, the Johannesburg Council will be sitting to elect a new mayor for the city and its 6 million residents. There's an enormous amount of background into how we got here, but there's two main stories that have been prominent in the public discourse. They are the DA's refusal to go into coalition with the Patriotic Alliance unless the PA ended their relationship with the ANC throughout the country, and the DA's decision to announce Mpho Phalatse as its mayoral candidate. I'd like to disclaim at this point that all the opinions in this video are my own and do not represent the official voice of any party. Let's discuss the first story. I have to apologize to anyone who follows me on Facebook and has seen me use this analogy before, but it's very apt, so I'm going to repeat it here. Just imagine for a moment that you're in a relationship with someone, and after a couple of months, that person comes to you and says, listen, I've been talking to someone, and they're willing to offer me a car to dump you. But if you give me your car, I'll stay with you. And also, you got to do it before next week, because I got an important date planned with this person. You're a little shocked, right? At first. But you think that perhaps the relationship is worth saving. So it's not fair to put you under this type of pressure, just to hand over a car in a week. So you request that they rather don't go on the date with the other person, and you'll discuss the deal without the pressure of time. Your partner dumps you and starts a relationship with the other person. A couple of months later, the partner comes back and says, listen, that person isn't giving me enough. So if you give me 2 luxury SUVs, I'll come back to you. Your first instinct is obviously to tell him to go to hell. But your friends convince you that this relationship might be good for you. So you come back with a counter offer suggesting that the 2 SUVs is excessive, and you can do 1 SUV and a sedan. They once again tell you to bugger off and then return to the other relationship. Finally, they come to you again a couple of months later, and they're not happy that they're the side dish in this other relationship, except this time they want you to buy them a beach villa on the beachfront in one of the most expensive suburbs in the country. This time you respond that you're not going to even consider their offer unless they stop their relationship with the other party. Because if they can keep going between you and them, getting a better deal each time, they're never going to be loyal to you. This is exactly what happened in Joburg with the Patriotic Alliance. When they entered the multi-party government, they received 3 positions of significance, meaning 38% of their caucus were sitting in either chairperson or MMC positions, and receiving significant salaries as well as having access to city resources. The PA then demanded an additional position or additional positions after the ousting of Vasco da Gama, with the threat of leaving the coalition for a better deal by the ANC, a threat they followed through on. Subsequently, months later, they returned again with demand for specific positions on the mayoral committee, positions with massive potential for corruption. When offered alternative positions, they rejected them and went back to the ANC-EFF coalition. Finally, they have come again and offered to dump the ANC-EFF coalition in Johannesburg only if they awarded the mayorship. If they maintain their relationship with the ANC, then they'll always have the option of going to renegotiate their deal, demanding a bigger and bigger slice of the pie, collapsing governments willy-nilly, and grinding service delivery to a halt. Therefore, it was imperative for someone to put an end to the cycle of extortion for the sake of the residents of Joburg, for the sake of the future stability, and for the sake of principled government. That is why the DA had the specific demand that the PA gets out of bed with the ANC everywhere. It was not an unreasonable request. In fact, it was the only logical demand that could be made in that situation. Let's now delve into the second story, being the hysteria around the DA's announcement of Mpho Phalatse as the mayoral candidate. The key understanding to this decision lies entirely in the answer on whether or not the multi-party coalition still exists in Johannesburg. Well, if you asked ActionSA on the 3rd of October last year, They were already telling the world there is no longer a coalition in Johannesburg. This was after Mayor Phalatse was ousted for the first time, albeit illegally. ActionSA rejoined the fold after the court ordered Mayor Phalatse reinstated. But after Mayor Phalatse was voted out again in January, ActionSA made it abundantly obvious that they were finished with the coalition by fielding their own mayoral candidate moments after the fall of the multi-party government. And they have continued to act unilaterally ever since, fielding their own candidates in every election in council since January. If the coalition isn't valid anymore, then the DA is free to nominate whoever it likes as a mayoral candidate. However, if you hold that the coalition still exists, then there remains only one previously agreed upon candidate for mayor, and that is Dr. Mpho Phalatse. So either way you look at it, nominating Dr. Phalatse was perfectly fair. The question needs to be asked then, why is ActionSA so determined to push the DA back into a coalition when the coalition still doesn't have the numbers required to win a mayoral election? The answer to this, I believe, lies in what ActionSA's stated intentions in politics are. ActionSA has placed on public record that their aim is to replace the DA, which is why they have the seemingly irrepressible obsession with the DA. The truth is that you have to look at everything ActionSA does and says through the lens that their intention is to replace the DA, which implies that very little they say or do will be of benefit to the DA. The way ActionSA are dishing out such lovely advice for the DA reminds me of a moment from this weekend's Formula One. That has generated a ton of memes, and that moment is when Fernando Alonso gave his teammate advice to change his brake balance to match his own. A lap later, his teammate Lance Stroll finds himself losing his back end on arguably the most important corner exit in all of Formula One. Well, I'm sure that Alonso's advice was innocent. I wouldn't give Michael Beaumont the same credit. Clearly, ActionSA has either made a deal with parties the DA cannot be associated with, like the PA or the EFF, that would get them over the line if they had the DA's support, or ActionSA simply wants to turn the DA into a scapegoat for the ANC-EFF coalition retaining power in Johannesburg. There are a number of further arguments that can be made in this regard, namely the fact that the DA was not consulted while ActionSA was negotiating behind the scenes with other former members of the multi-party government. And the first time the DA was actually contacted was yesterday, the 1st of May, less than 24 hours before the important council meeting was meant to start. Number one, this is exactly the non-consultative unilateral behavior that ActionSA is accusing the DA of doing. Two, the DA has no idea who ActionSA has been talking to and what agreements, horse trades, and other promises have been made, and therefore to ask the DA to sign onto a deal it is essentially blind to the full details of it is patently unfair. There are also a number of claims that the DA isn't serious about the Moonshot Coalition Pact because they rejected the coalition of the PA. The truth is that the Moonshot Coalition Pact is the antithesis of everything we're seeing right now in Johannesburg. The aim of the pact is to ensure coalition negotiations begin a year in advance of elections, so that parties can iron out the details without a gun to their heads and the pressure to come up with instantaneous deals. The Moonshot Pact aims to create well-thought-out, well-negotiated, stable governments and move us on from unstable, erratic coalitions we're seeing the rise and fall of throughout the country. Finally, let's take a look at the numbers and the various permutations of today's vote. The magical number for mayoral election victory in the city of Johannesburg is 136 votes. At present, there are 269 councillors in the city of Joburg, with one ward councillor recently vacating her seat to shift from the ANC to the PA. In the ANC-EFF coalition, there are the following parties: ANC, EFF, PA, Al-Jama, ARC, AHC, Good, ATM, COPE, PAC, APC, and UDM. In the former multi-party coalition, there are the following parties: the DA, ActionSA, IFP, Freedom Front Plus, ACDP, and the URM. The ANC-EFF PA coalition, if it holds together, is 139 votes, versus the former multi-party coalition 130. So if the ANC-EFF-PA coalition sticks together, then whoever their candidate is will be the mayor regardless of who is nominated on the other side, whether it be a single candidate or multiple candidates. The incoming mayor in this scenario is likely to be from Aljama, ARC, or COPE, whoever is nominated. However, there are rumors that all is not well in the ANC-EFF-PA camp, and we may see the EFFs not stick with the coalition line if, say, that the ANC submits their own candidate. In this case, the ANC-PA coalition falls to 110 votes, which is less than the majority. Now the permutations come in. If it's a two-horse race and is only a former single multi-party coalition candidate versus an ANC candidate, with the EFF abstaining or lending its support to the multi-party side, then the former multi-party candidate will become mayor, bearing in mind that the DA will not be likely to change its mind on who its candidate is. If it's a three-horse race, and it's an ANC candidate versus DA candidate versus an ActionSA candidate, it becomes 110 versus 75 versus 55, with the 29 votes of the EFF being able to swing between the DA or ActionSA. What this means is that the candidate not supported by the EFF will drop out in the first round, and the next round will be a contest between the ANC candidate and the remaining former multi-party candidate. What happens here will be the result of frantic negotiations, but the DA's argument about not knowing what the agreements and deals around ActionSA's candidate is very strong in this situation. It's going to be an interesting day for sure, and the roller coaster is still running, so we have to wait until the end of the day to see which way the track turns next. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.